Hello, I'm Rachel Shalmerdine, and I'd like to welcome you to Moments in Motion. And this week, I will be talking to someone who I'm really pleased to have as my guest. His name is Philip Marshall. He is a wonderful creative leader. I've known him for many years. I was trying to work out how long. I think it's at least 20 years that I've known Philip now. And the thing that I have always thought sets Philip apart is not just his amazing creative talent, but it's just how much he cares. He's a very humane person and an extremely humane designer. And that really comes across in the work that he does. He cares about people. So he cares about the people he works with. He cares about the people he works for, and he cares about the people who are affected by the impact of any kind of design work that he does. And to be honest, I was thinking about this. He's probably far too cool, really, to talk to a fuddy-duddy like me, but I'm very, very glad he has agreed to lower his cool status to have this chat with me. So, Philip Marshall, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Are you good? Are you well on this rainy, grey, yucky old day?
I'm really good.
Yeah.
Really good, really positive.
Sounds good, yeah. That sounds very good. That's kind of counter to a lot of doom and gloom on LinkedIn that I see about the industry. But there does seem to be the seeds of a feeling that there's a bit of a renaissance about to happen.
I think so.
Are you one of those people that think that's true?
I think so. I mean, I think we needed to get to a hard place as an industry, as creative industries in general, to be able to rebuild. And I think we're just at the start of rebuilding. And I think that's really interesting. I think we're also at the end of postmodernism. We're firmly in metamodernism, which means we've got to change our systems, our ways of thinking, everything we're doing, and for the better. And we're at the start of realizing that change needs to happen. Things like AI are making us change. And I think that's quite interesting.
Explain, though, before you expand on that, explain what you mean by metamodernism. So I understand postmodernism, but you say we're at the end of that. What's metamodernism?
We've finished.
Then?
Yeah.
What are we going into then?
Well, for starters, what I would say is I think all our systems are set up in modernist times for design. And served us well in postmodernism. We all know what both of those are. But metamodernism is the new era, and we're in it firmly. Most people seem to think it's a digital age, like third round of digital, fourth round of digital, but it isn't. It's more to do with having a more caring, open community and society that works with not just science and known progression. It also reverts to old feelings of old ideas of feelings and needing to look at. That's led us very firmly into this metamodern age, which means that we really need to reassess those ways we worked during modernist and postmodernist times and come up with new systems.
I thought that we were starting to enter into a more feelings age.
We are.
A long time ago. Do you know when I thought the start of it was when Princess Diana died, and there was that outpouring of mass grief. You know, people suddenly were crying in public, which was unheard of in the UK back then. If you think this is 97. And I remember being shocked. I had just moved to Dublin, and so I was watching it from afar. I was watching a British public who, you know, I remember sitting on a tube and nobody would make eye contact, you know, and I'd been in situations where people had been attacked and nobody stepped in to help, or, you know, I'd even been on a train where a man collapsed and nearly died, and it was me and a teenage boy that's tried to help and get people to help, but nobody would. And so I remember watching this outpouring of grief, and just, do you remember all the flowers, you know, the helicopter shots of London and just flowers everywhere? But people also started talking to each other, to strangers. And I remember then coming back to the UK the following year, and something had shifted. So I think maybe there was a sort of something was going on. Maybe there was a rejection of this sort of
You're actually
cold, postmodern kind of world, this very brutal, very science-oriented world. Maybe it had already started, do you think?
Well, that is round the time that it officially started.
Is
the
it?
difference is that it's sort of around there and the millennium, just after. But
yes,
the thing is that with this, it's been undefined for a long time as a movement. We're saying we knew something had happened, but we didn't know what. And now the definition's starting to come in because we're probably, towards halfway through it. I think it's very hard to be able to rationalize the movement, the time you're in, until it's pretty far through. Interestingly, I think still people don't actually know what metamodernism is or understand it, and the definitions are still all over the place. But we know we're in it, and we know it's different, and we know we know it's about caring and feeling, as along with the not throwing away what we've the progress that we've made.
When I go into a business and the culture maybe is sort of all over the place, it's kind of broken.
Yes.
And, in the past, I would have gone in and tried to apply metrics to try and assess it kind of quite logically. And I don't now. I tend to go very instinctively and emotionally, because really what's happened is that you've got a group of individuals who are all craving connection and meaning. And yet the old systems that we've got for the way that we work, the way that we live, is still sort of post-industrial. It's still to be kind of like almost machine-like, operating in silos or in isolation, and we are not designed for that. We can't function like that. And now we're starting to see the breakdown of that, because human beings just can't be like that.
Yep, I completely agree. I think as an industry, we know something shifted, but very few people can put their finger on it as well.
People are scapegoating AI, aren't they, a lot?
They're scapegoating AI, they're scapegoating clients, which is awful, in my opinion. They're scapegoating an awful lot,
Well, they scapegoat a generation. Like, for a time, it was just blame the millennials. It's all the millennials' fault.
It is our fault.
You're not a millennial.
No, I'm joking.
You wish.
Because apparently
you're as old as me, Philip Marshall.
We all got apparently, but our generation, apparently, or the Gen Xers, it was our fault as well, because we all got rich off it and didn't give enough back.
Yeah,
I haven't seen
we're
my
the individualistic generation, aren't we? That was
I haven't seen
me.
My rich. I'm still waiting for those riches to come.
Yeah, God.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. No, I don't want riches.
No.
But I would like to live in a society, most definitely, that is
kind of
more coherent. I just feel like something's gone very wrong. And I've heard a few people in the design world say that design could lead us out of it if it was allowed to, if enough really great thinkers in the design world and the creative world could get together, because there is, we don't have religion to lead us out of it. We're not naturally heading towards religion, really, and we definitely don't look to politics to lead us out of it. And so
I think the creative industries have a valid voice and should be there.
Yeah, should be.
Whether we will be, I don't know. We can try. I don't know whether we can solely lead out, but I think we can be part of a solution, and we should be thinking that way. I think if we go back to the lockdowns, the companies that did well were really safe pairs of hands, and that's what was needed. But during that time, those companies that had struggled to come back from that. Secondly, and had educated the clients, that's who they were. Secondly, clients were feeling safe employing them. And I think we gave away a lot of our equity as creatives during that time. But the interesting question really is how do we then turn that to show that brave work is worthwhile? I think people know it in their hearts, and brave thinking, people know it in their hearts, but it's really hard to commission.
I think the seeds were sown again. I think they were sown before the lockdowns. I think the lockdowns just sort of capped off that kind of fear. But I think it was the crash of 2008.
You're on my wavelength.
Yeah. I'd been in the design world for I came in 2000, late 2000, so just before 9/11, which then, of course, knocked everything just into a whole new stratosphere. People did not know how to react to that at all. And then people were rebuilding, reconfiguring. Yep. And again, I watched that happen from being, real fear, shock. People lost business. People were scared of spending money. But design didn't lose its voice during that at all. No. There wasn't a fear of suggesting brave things, like you said, that need for brave. But after 2008, after the crash, the design world was totally different. And I've never seen it recover. Designers suddenly became an add-on rather than a thought leader. They daren't suggest something that was unusual or difficult or unpalatable for a client. Clients wanted to play it safe, and designers really were the facilitators of that, sadly.
I think so.
That's why we see such terrible design. Public architecture was awful. Fashion had gone just terrible, so boring.
And look at it now.
Definitely branding has just gone so dull. Advertising, all these things. That's why all these great names are dying now, or have gone extinct, because they sold their soul. Yes, they sold their soul to pander to clients who were nervous. And what they should have done is said, "Look, trust us. We know what we're doing. But
we'll lead your way out of this." Yeah. And that's what I try and sell is. We're part of leading the way out, and I want to work with brave people.
And do people respond well to it, Philip?
No.
You don't know. So clients aren't there yet.
No. So it is a slow progress to get there. And I think clients' idea of being brave is different than ours. I think equally we've done ourselves disservice deciding that certain sectors should think and do and be this rather than be themselves. And you can see it in, say, high street fashion. I usually refer back to fashion. That most brands are so busy. I mean, at the moment, to try and capture a bit of the market, instead of thinking, well, we're this brand, what's our opinion? And I think in general, that has been lost a lot all around, this looking left and right at what everybody else is doing instead of looking internally.
I mean, you know much more about the fashion world. I've done a little bit of work in fashion. I've done work years ago with Burberry and Jaeger. But don't you think that's why maybe the luxury brands are doing so well? Because they're so extraordinary in comparison to high street, whereas it used to be the luxury brands were jealous.
Yeah.
They wanted to be Topshop. You would have, you'd have a Jaeger trying to do a better material version of whatever Topshop were doing, because it was funky, it was cool, they had cool designers and they were really leading the way. They were doing stuff that hadn't hit the catwalks.
And you had people like Debenhams doing extraordinary things of getting designers working with them to make it accessible as well. And just the other way around as well. It was brave work. And I think if you look at the moment, we're ending up with a lot of high fashion celebrity creative directors, really just a mouthpiece. And, it's because we've devalued ourselves as designers and our credibility that all of a sudden, a rapper's son can take over one of the major brands, or at least the menswear, and then talk absolute nonsense on a video. I mean, actually, some of the work was all right, but he was surrounded by good designers under him. And I'm not belittling people like, Stella McCartney and Victoria Beckham. They've got, all sorts of wonderful designers. I mean, everybody loves J.W. Anderson and, coming through and doing wonderful stuff. So there is there, but equally we're letting these other people in to do because we've made space for it.
It's kind of like the celebrity chef mentality, isn't it? It's like
at least they could cook.
Yes, but it's sort of then they suddenly put their names onto everything. They're designing homeware, everything, simply because it's like, oh well, people will buy it because there'll be trust. So again, it's playing safe and assuming that the customers only want to buy a known name, and then now it's become that people only buy a known name because that's all there is.
Well, you see brands setting up with a celebrity partner from the beginning.
Yes,
because they can't trust in their idea, and it's a shame. They can't trust they'll get the traction from it. But there is people, isn't there? I mean, like Joseph and Joseph and all those sort of people are just wonderful. A couple of brothers just set up doing great products. You know, we're always getting stories coming through.
Yeah, but the thing is now they're so stand out because there aren't that many. The on the whole, all areas of design has become incredibly scared, incredibly dull. Just won't take a risk. So risk averse. But that's why we need people like you to push, 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 push. So let's get on with our moments in motion then. Let's find out a little bit more about you. But I'm going to ask you just a warm-up question that you don't know about first.
Okay.
So can you think, Philip, of a hero or a heroine, but not in the design world? Someone who you have admired, you looked up to, or who has influenced you just as a person? And they can be...
No, it's a really obvious one, but my dad, you know, and it does sound obvious.
Yeah, but if it's true, it's true.
It is true. You know, we were brought up, if we wanted a sledge, we had to design and make it. My brother
really?
and I, with him.
Mine was always, if you want something, you've got to go and get a job and work and get it.
Well, we had to do that as well.
You had
we
to
were
actually design it.
11.
Lovely. I wish I'd had that.
Yeah, we were working from, well, at least I was, not my brother. Lazy thing. Yeah. I was working from 11, but yeah, and had
me too.
3 jobs at points and all sorts of things. But, you know, yeah, he'd left school at 15, become a shepherd.
Really?
With no qualifications, and managed to work his way up then became a lathe turner, a tool maker and a lathe turner, then worked his way up to being an apprentice for an engineer, and actually done so well that he got free flying lessons, became a pilot for a while, and all sorts of things whilst he was working. He was born in Africa, but had come over and joined the war, smuggled over on a boat out the Cape. I think he just worked against a lot of stuff that was not for him. He was dyslexic like me. He was pretty much illiterate when he left school and didn't have any qualifications like me when I came out of school. And he worked his way up and did pretty well. Designed trains, cranes, or anything with an ain behind it. You know, and did well and provided for his family. That sort of, I suppose, inner belief and that sort of... I don't know if he really had inner belief, actually. That sort of determination not to let the life get to him.
Yes.
That, you know, what had dealt, the cards he was dealt, get to him, I think was amazing. He is also, you know, driven by, he always says he's driven by love. And, you know, in general, in the widest sense.
Yes.
And I learned that from him, that really, you know, have empathy, have love, and try and approach everything you do with that.
Well, he's definitely pass that on to you, as well as the sort of have a go and make things. But yes, because I was reading through your comments from other people on LinkedIn saying that you have this love.
That's very nice. Usually when I'm feeling down, I do read through some of that stuff.
Oh.
And, yeah.
Does he know? Would he know? What if you said to him, I've just done a podcast, Dad, and I was asked who's my hero. I said you.
I think
what would he say?
He'd probably cry. Yeah, and then he'll tell me, you know, but he always, he's kind. He'll turn it back and sort of go, but you've done what you do. You've done what, you know, that's on you, not on me, and things like that. And, yeah.
What a good dad. I like the sound of him. He's lovely. That was a good one. Okay, thank you for that. Right, well, now let's dive into some of your moments. So I asked you to think about some moments where you're heading in one direction and then life does what life tends to do, and something maybe even seems to derail you a little bit at the time. But when you look back, if that hadn't have happened, I never would have met that person or learnt that. Or
well, the first one was I was determined at a young age to go into fashion.
Oh, were you?
And yes. I studied fashion. And I worked for Vivienne Westwood, Valentino, a couple of others, Griffin, a few other people. And I realised that world really wasn't for me. I was really quite young. I'd then done an OND, so not a full degree. It's sort of the equivalent of A-levels, but managed to work my way in. I realised that it wasn't all about garments for me. I was really interested in culture and curious about wider design.
Even at that young age.
And so I decided to change careers at that point and went back to college. But all the way through, I think that was one big moment, and no one really helped me with that. I just did that. I mean, I discussed it with people, my dad and other people, and but you know, it was just a decision I came to, and I think that was a big shift for me. I knew I wanted to stay fashion adjacent. I played with architecture, played a little bit with jewellery and millinery, which I think I would have loved millinery actually, but was worried it wouldn't be a big enough career, you know. There wasn't much room in it. And then eventually sort of fell into, through doing furniture actually, fell into interiors.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, did quite a bit. And then
but then that kind of links to back to your father again, doesn't it? Being the lathe turner.
It does. And making stuff,
making.
And that sort of, and so during college I was designing a little bit for Heels and Habitat and people like that, and slowly realized that I wanted to control the environment, so I went into that, and then I got into brand as well. Whilst I was there and really interested in that, I had to set up a snowboard society at college just so I could get free snowboarding holidays, and really got into the branding of that and the branding of other stuff, and started playing with that. So yeah, I think more and more I started to get more and more interested in the customer at that point, or the end user, I suppose. Yeah, so that was sort of the first turning point. I think the second one was actually when we started working together, which was Colder Moore, which is a great company. And I'd done the standard sort of projection through. Along the way, I'd worked at Imagination, where I'd really learned that all the disciplines of design could work together and should be thought about together, and start to get more multidisciplinary and get more and more ambitious with that. But I think the big shift actually was I got to design director, creative director level at Colder Moore, and really started to see that leadership was less about the actual creative, because we could do that, and the difficulty in leadership was really about sort of the culture inside the studio really determining the work.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I wish more people would see that.
And well, we were working on it together at the time as well, and it has never left me. And I think that was a real turning point for me. I think also what happened there was we were talking, you'll probably remember, about me becoming, at the time, they were talking to me about becoming an MD, and that realization that wasn't at the time right for me was quite a shake-up as well. So those two things together sent me down quite a different route. And I think I got more and more defined into being interested in culture internally in the studio as well as externally, building culture rather than enhancing brands.
Yes, because that's at the heart of brands when you really go in depth, isn't it? It's that same approach that you would have to building a good culture in the agency that you're in. It is really about understanding how the different people actually create an effect and a feeling, because that's really what brand is, isn't it? For the end users, it's a feeling that you're trying to create in us, or that we just have, because there are certain things that happen when we go into a space or when we come into contact with a particular product.
I mean, there's emotional resonance or emotional reactions, and that's something that used to be designed a lot into space, and I think and brand and general journeys.
Yes.
And I think that's been lost, and people talk about it but don't actually know how to do it anymore. And there was some old techniques we used to use that I'm starting to use again, about that sort of emotional mapping of stuff, and it's really lost. I think one of the big changes in customer experience has been when we went digital, and we took out a lot of that. And actually, you can see it's starting. People are struggling, but they're starting to push it back into digital. But it's something that's not talked about enough. I think 74% of UK shoppers prefer to shop in person than online. You know, we've closed down from emotional connections, and we really need them. actually design is absolutely brilliant at facilitating them.
Absolutely.
And it's something we don't treasure enough. And it's a really big commercial point of difference if you can do it. And, it should be part of a business plan. And it rarely is.
All businesses should be considering this really strongly. I mean, after living in Italy and spending a lot of time in Italy, you can see the difference in how they present their retail experience, their restaurants, their hotels. Design is everything. It's because it's reaching out to people immediately and creating that meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And they're masters at it. I walk down the high street in any town in this country and I'm just like, where am I? I have no sense of where I am.
Mm-hmm.
I have no sense of belonging. I have no sense that I can plug into any of this on any meaningful level other than transactional. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Italy, I never feel that. Mm-hmm. Even though, of course, ultimately it is transactional, but there's something else going on. Meaning and history and storytelling. And like you said, that kind of customer experience and customer journey.
I've lived in Milan as well. And I think as a people, they have a culture of welcoming, openly welcoming. So they're very good hosts. If you are allowed in when you're in there, you are very welcome. And a lot of other cultures are better at it than us. Their culture is very welcoming. They're very good at that service culture, bringing it to that. So you will get it. We'll get a mumbling into a restaurant, where do you want to sit type thing. Well, it's for two, that's about it. Or there, you feel like you're invited into an experience. And then that goes into the whole of it. That giving nature goes into everything they're doing. Yes, it does. Yes. And they have a sensitivity to beauty and creating a feeling that you instantly want to be part of that lifestyle. I've been into cafes where you go, I want to live here. I want to be this person. I'm immediately thinking, I need to up my game. I need a better coat. I need a better haircut. I need to be the avatar that lives in this place. They're very good at creating sort of sense of lifestyle and you instantly want to belong to it. It's very clever, very psychological, I think. Yes. Yeah. And we need to do that more because you're right. When I first came in and started working with companies, there was so much talk about the customer journey and wayfinding and a way of subtly drawing someone in and making them feel they want to be part of that and then they want to return. That has gone. And I think, yes, I hadn't thought about it, but I think you're right. With the digital taking over, it needed to be functional. The limits on is the reason we had blanding for branding because, the bad quality screens didn't let us see serifs. So we went sans serif and everything started to be bold and look the same. But, also websites were incredibly hard to do. They're not so much now and were incredibly complicated and we need minimum clicks to purchase because people were not used to using it. But we don't need to be quite the same anymore. And I think, we're also familiar. We don't need the familiar journey. We don't need every single website to look the same. No, not anymore. Well, let's just sort of take me back then. So obviously then you'd started to think more and more about culture at that stage. So where did that take you? What did you think then that you could do? Because really you're starting to think and behave in a way that's outside, because that's the trouble with the design world as well. Even now, you need to be this, or this, not this, and this. Well, two things. One is, I realised, and I don't like the phrase because it's a bit pretentious, but I realised I am a polymath. And it is a strength, but it's a hard to sell strength. It's very hard to sell, yeah. Because you don't fit in any particular box. It's something that if someone can make room for in a brand and get you in, it's a real advantageous. It's really advantageous to them, but I think it's incredibly hard to employ. So that happened, but also I set up my own design company. So there was a few things I wanted to do. One is not many people it wasn't really a term virtual studio, but I wanted to work as a virtual studio. I wanted to keep overheads down. I saw the struggles that companies were having with overhead, how much that was affecting the fees and the work and everything else. That back of house stuff really affects an awful lot. And I also was really frustrated that at the time, because nobody did work remotely, that a load of people were having to drop out the industry, particularly people who couldn't afford to live in London. It was invariably, it was women, but mums with young children who just couldn't work freelance because they couldn't work full time and they couldn't get in the studio. And actually neurodivergent people. So I really wanted to work with these people, and I wanted to work in a polymath way across discipline, really looking for the solution wherever it is rather than in one place. And I was lucky, one brand set up in Turkey and asked me to set up and put money behind me, gave me work. So I could start doing that. And that was an extraordinary bit of work. I think it was restaurants, and we worked across every single touch point and did what really stands up now as a great bits of work. It got a lot of praise, Louis Vuitton writing about it and all sorts of things like that, which you don't get easily.
No.
I think we were in Monaco 3 times, and all the stuff that you wanted at a time. That was a great bit of work, and that led to, almost 10 years of doing that. Lockdown took the heart out of it. And it was time for another change. I've never been scared of change. So,
So what happened next then? So, lockdowns clobbered a lot of people, took a lot of people so by surprise. But then during lockdown, I did a load of workshops where I'd have about 10 creative directors and design directors going on a journey, really. I called them the magic of time, because these are people who, like yourself and like myself at the time, worked round the clock and never had any time to think. And so they were thinking workshops where everyone got together and had a chance to swap ideas. And there were quite a few people who said that they could see in their agencies, be they interiors, architectural, branding, that in some cases that remote working, but teams sharing ideas remotely, rather than it being detrimental, was actually making the design better, because it was cutting out a lot of fluff meetings.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really, really interesting thinking. And also people were working with people across all different countries where they wouldn't normally get the chance to work closely with them. They would maybe have a quick call, but now they were properly collaborating on projects in real time. And they were finding that it was just changing how they were viewing how work could be done. And they were going into projects much more deeply. There wasn't all that wasted time.
Yeah, I think in general, it was a time for introspection for all of us. In every field of life. And that was, I think in some ways, everybody needed that. And
because the industry was working at burnout level by 2019 completely, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And, I think that was good. I've been feeling for a long time personally that I wanted to be around more inspiring people at the same level and above and below and everything, but physically around more and more people. And that was the decision I came to, and it was a pretty obvious decision. It had been happening anyway, and then lockdown made that worse. So I think that made a lot of sense that I'd go off and do something else. So I went and joined the One-Off for a while, which was fantastic, multidisciplinary agency. And absolutely lovely people. And the reason I joined them was they asked the best interview question I've ever been asked, was how do you judge kindness in what you do? And then Lee said, it's the first thing he looks for when employing anyone, is kindness. And I just thought, above talent and all that kindness, I just thought, wow, that really is, that's something special. And they are something special.
Yeah, that's amazing. Very, very unusual.
I think it helps for them. They're set up by 3 Midlanders, and that's that they've sort of got a different attitude because of it. I'm not saying other attitudes are wrong, but it helps them want to be them and do it their way.
I thought you were going to say actually that during the lockdowns, that's when you started to work on a book. No,
unfortunately, redundancy hit at the One-Off, and that made me again reassess, rethink. And one thing, I mentioned earlier, I had a reading age of 9 when I left school. writing age, and I didn't read a lot. I couldn't read a lot. I was still reading Beano comics and things like that, skateboard magazines. That was about it. And I failed everything. And coming out of that, I've always been scared of my writing, other people reading my writing. So just over a year ago, I decided to write every day on LinkedIn, every single weekday. And that has been extraordinary. That's a real changing point. It's obviously got rid of me being so scared of it. But what's interesting is I've realized, and in fact, I was talking to my father about this recently. I've realized that writing things helps you structure your thoughts in different ways. My thoughts, instead of being so scattergun as they always were, are much more, they have a narrative, the way they work through. And that's from writing. And I was speaking to my father because he's now got dementia. And he was saying that when he loses words, he loses the ability to think. He said that language is the determination of thinking. He was in a very clear mood when he was talking about it. And as he lost words, he doesn't think. He can't think. It literally goes blank. And I think that's related to how I feel about writing. Anyways, because I've lost being scared of writing, and at the same time, I started thinking a lot about the industry we're in, what's needed, how we could be positive, how we can help positive change in the industry. And more, I start thinking that we have, a lot of us have good training in what we do. You know, we've been to college, we've learned on the job. Actually, clients, they do have training, but not exactly in commissioning and leading creative work. And the more I looked at it, the more there's nothing written about that. I thought, I can't really write that from being an agency side or design side thinker. I need someone else's voice. So I've got together with a friend, Nick. He's a marketeer by trade, very good one. And we're writing together on two different voices as a sort of conversation, a book that you can dip in and out of with thoughts, but about how to form a brief and how to lead work, how to pick a creative company to work with. It's just little sections you could just pick up, read any old bit. I'll do some little drawings in it at some point, and then we'll get that out sometime soon.
What will you do? How will you get it out?
It's going to be on Amazon printed.
If you use Amazon, you can self-publish, and you can also then have a Substack. You can, there's so many ways to get your thoughts out there. And people can subscribe if they want to, can have a really good subscription model to get deeper insights.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah, and I love your posts. I have to say, because of course, you and I met through me being brought into Coldmore to do some coaching.
Yes.
And I remember when we first sat down, you told me just how dyslexic you were, that you were right at the extreme end of it.
I was a medical test case.
That's the era where dyslexia wasn't talked about, it wasn't diagnosed. If you didn't follow the set ways of learning, you were categorized, and you had a really rough time, didn't you, at school?
I was in remedial class.
When I was first training to be a coach, and I volunteered in my local primary school, I asked them, could I come and test some NLP theories? And I was just really lucky because the headmistress had just been on an NLP course. So she was like, yes, come in. And it was just really interesting because even under such a really brilliant head, they had a table of kids that the teachers called the stupid table. Can you believe that? That kind of stuff was still going on. So this would have been back in about 1999, 2000. Wow. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And they were the kids that I was given. Oh yeah, we can't do anything with them. Take them. So I was allowed to, do sessions with them. And all the kids who had problems, of course, with reading and spelling were highly visual. And there was one boy who, and this makes me so mad, an educational psychologist had written him off. He was 7, and she had actually written in her report that he had no ability really to learn how to read or to spell, that she couldn't see how he could be progressed. And so she'd written him off. And I just thought, I wonder if he's extremely visual. and I got him to pretend he was projecting words onto a cinema screen, and he could spell every single word as long as he was projecting it onto a screen, but not only the correct way, and I'm a good speller, but he could do it backwards, which I can't do. But also, this is where he blew me away, and I actually got the teacher to come in and for him to show that he could spell from the inside out and spell it that way or that way.
No.
And he was a fantastic little boy. He was so lovely, even though he'd been sort of just written off. His parents were just devastated. And I just couldn't believe that at 7, that is how we treat children. And yet all the kids I worked with all had such amazing talents. They either just had parents who worked very long hours and didn't have time to do homework with them or do reading with them, or like this little boy, he was extremely visual, but the school system wasn't geared up.
It still isn't.
To teach like that.
Well, Kenneth Robbins, was it? You ever seen his podcast? I think it's his TED Talk. No. It was one of the 5 top ever. Watched TED Talk ever. It's extraordinary. His whole take is that we don't teach creativity.
No.
And creativity is one of our greatest human gifts, and we all have it.
I would say it's actually the greatest, because nothing is invented. You're not sitting on a chair without creativity. There is no great language. There's no progression. You're not traveling to another place without creativity. All of it is creative thought. All the leap forwards in humanity are because of creativity.
But also some tribe times that we wouldn't have ever left our campfire and our little settling that we had without neurodivergent people.
No.
Because they would have, the majority of people go hunting here because that's where the good meat is.
Yeah, play it safe.
Do this, we'd farm there, where neurodivergent people would be like, I wonder what's over there. I'm just going to go and find. I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to go and find out.
Why?
Yeah.
They would say, why?
Yeah.
We're going hunting in this place. Why? Oh, shut up. Just come, because it works.
Yeah.
And then someone might actually go, why do we still always go hunting here? So yes, you're right. And it's called the strange sheep syndrome, isn't it? Because in every flock of sheep, there's always ones that survive anything, because they'll go, hang on a minute. Yeah. They're all going that way. But I'm not so sure they should. And you're right. Humanity would not move forward or survive without those people going, yeah, I know you're all doing that, but I'm really interested in that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go over there.
Yeah. And probably get eaten half the time, but
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe not. 9 times out of 10 eaten. What at one time
that
they
one
don't
time.
get eaten.
Big move. Yeah. Yeah.
And then add that with some creativity. Because obviously now that I think they're rewriting how we view ancient history, because I think they're realizing that they were incredibly held together through creativity. Any of their sort of what they call rituals, everything's a ritual when you're talking to an ancient historian or archaeologist, but actually it's about coming together. And there is huge amount of art and music and, dressing up, and all of that is creative, because you're creating a whole new atmosphere. You're creating a customer experience, basically. Welcome to our tribe. We dress like this.
Yeah. Yeah. You are belonging and all those sort of things.
All of it.
All that goes back to what brands are.
Totally. So all these things, people will write this stuff up and go, it's not important. But ultimately, you're right. At the heart of every brand is how to understand, to create a feeling of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the one thing that every single human being, good or bad, from whatever race, culture, era, we all have that inside us, a need to belong.
Some of the greatest bits of work I've ever done have been around where you get under the skin of the end user, and all sorts of things like that, where you can really get into them, under what they are. It's wonderful work, and I love it. The challenge is when we have true understanding, we can let ourselves go from that design and design for that person. Is when work is absolutely wonderful.
And I think, like you were saying, Philip, earlier, that there has been this loss of this customer journey, this customer experience. I think similarly, there has been that loss of applying psychology, which of course first really became used in a proper way was in advertising, and so successfully and playfully used, and but really effective. That's how all their campaigns were so
was
successful.
amazing.
Yeah, Ogilvy. Ogilvy is
the god. Yeah,
the god of it.
Yeah.
But of course, then everyone then emulated that, and it was all through the advertising, and then really that sort of branding started to have that at the heart of their work, understanding the psychology of the person who wants to be part of that club, part of that group, that tribe, and yet the psychology part seems to have gone away.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we've done in design is very hard to quantify design until it's finished, and you just look at the uplift in engagement, sales, or whatever. And branding and marketing are absolutely fantastic at doing that. And brand and environment and communications, digital can do it, but is incredibly hard. Apart from going, well, we had 24% uplift in whatever. It's incredibly hard to set those true objectives and be able to do it, which means that our commercial value has been eroded because it's a feeling. I think once you do that, then it's very hard for a brand, and more brands are led by short-termism, are not led by founders. And I'm not slating this at all. There's a natural, but a founder will get obsessed with doing something a certain way, and the feeling of their customer and all that sort of stuff. Where I think once we end up with a committee, led by an FD, and there is some fantastic ones out there, but it becomes really hard to justify spending the money and giving the time to something that actually does the job. Even though we know in our heart, and actually when a company's valued, is valued by its brand perception as well, and it's the value of the brand itself.
Absolutely.
So we do know monetary wise that it's important.
I think the committee forgets that, whereas the founder never forgets that.
No, because it's part of them. And, you can see for his faults, people like Chip Wilson from Lululemon fighting for it now, and Steve Jobs going back to, and I know we always go back to Apple, but he, going back to Apple and bringing all that back. And, was it Paul Van Der from Vans being brought back there years ago as the founder? And so often the founder comes back and just puts the spirit back in it, because it's too easy to value that and to let that go and not invest in it. And really that's the heart of, we started off talking about caring in this talk, and it's about care. It's about loving your customer, caring, understanding, not judging them. I've worked for companies that sort of laugh at their customers or have no understanding of them, or just don't even like them. They think they're below them or something. And, they're beholden
it's the
to
Ratner
them.
moment, isn't it?
And, we see it in politics happening quite a lot as well, to people not
it's always, it's always in politics. But,
and think, it's obvious, you come remote from it. But that love, that care, that empathy is just everything in business, and design is business, and design is a business tool. And
it's one
we
of
don't
the best
sell
tools
it.
if it's used properly, isn't it? It's the most effective tool if it's used well.
Yeah.
It's the quickest way to boost your sales, your image, your brand, your long-term success.
Yeah, innocent drinks. There was tons of different smoothie people who tried and had minimal success for a long time. And then they come out, and the product wasn't particularly much better than other people's. It was just their brand in general, the way they talked, the way they looked, everything was extraordinary.
But it's interesting you mention innocent, because then, of course, they got bought out and then they lost it. And so it's very interesting. It's like MAC makeup when it was bought by Estee Lauder.
Yep.
It lost all its cash. I mean, I used to, all my makeup was MAC, and I used to love going to the MAC shop on Carnaby Street. It was the best place. it was just a great way, you know, on a Friday night. Then you go out into Soho, and they had a real love of their customer and
Yes,
a
really did.
real understanding, and they understood all the different types of customer, from the quite theatrical, because I think they began as theatrical makeup, didn't they? But then they were bought by Estee Lauder.
Yeah, I lost it. I was listening to Bobby Brown recently. It was really inspiring,
yes.
actually. And she was talking about how she got pushed out after it sold, and how she wasn't allowed to do anything for so long, but she's back with a vengeance. But how she hadn't realised how much she was getting pulled remote. She was just getting wheeled out to do talks or to be the face, but really it was so remote from the product and the
That's
people.
when they, like you said, they have a committee that doesn't understand you. And if you're going to have a committee of people run your company, you need to have people who are fans, who have been customers, who really have that real in-depth understanding and love. Because it's the same with Barbara Daly in The Body Shop.
Yes.
You know, she made that. It was extraordinary. It was so radical, and it made people think about animal testing. You know, once you shopped in The Body Shop, you stopped using products that were tested on animals, and it changed people's thinking. It moved society forward. And then she's bought out, and what does it become? It just becomes a nothing place. So sad. It's just so sad.
Yeah. They're back, aren't they?
Yeah, coming back. Yeah, but it takes a long time. They had a long time in the wilderness.
I still think they've got a long way to go.
A long way. A long way.
I mean, but I love the fact a lot of heritage brands are coming back.
Yes, but maybe that is part of what you talked about at the beginning, that we're moving into this, you know, metamodernism age you talked about, where it is about caring and meaning and feeling. And I think if these huge organizations are so remote from that, they get it wrong. They try and ride the wave of it, but they don't understand. You have to get right down and up close to your customers to be able to understand what moves people. And I think humanity I think we are under a lot of pressure at the moment. I think we're in a very difficult time.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking about this the other day, that I watched a thing about the First World War. And I've always been obsessed with the First World War from being a small child. It made me realise just how radically different society was after the First World War, because it broke apart what had been a very orderly society, and it broke it apart for good and bad, an awful lot of bad. But, you know, it gave rise to, you know, more freedoms, and, you know, but
I'm quite fascinated with some of what came out, that bit in between the two wars.
The Jazz Age, Scott Fitzgerald,
The Beautiful People.
all of that.
Yeah, but then
just
Prohibition.
The
Great Recession, you know, the
cinema.
Depression.
It's a fascinating time, but I think we're at that sort of crux point as well now. I think our generation and the generation just after us and just before us have inherited a huge amount of ongoing stress that's been from endless war and society being broken apart and then remade, and then broken apart and then remade. And I think it's the time now where people want to discover, what are we? How do we live as a society? We now want to put it together, and it's got to be put together that it's the right way. It can't just be put together by government will say, well, we'll put it all together like this.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
got to be people-led.
I think one interesting thing that happened was sort of the mid-90s through to the mid-2000s or late 2000s. We had a point where we had a really long time where it was just boom, 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 boom. That wasn't enough even. And this goes back to the metamodernism thing. That isn't enough because there was no soul.
No.
You know, in hindsight, there wasn't enough soul to it. So, you know, how do we progress positively and as a move towards it? Obviously, there's, you know, we're like any time of real change, there's lights and darks. There's some pretty awful things happening. But that forces some good things as well. So, you know,
it's always the way we live in such it's always a binary, isn't it? It's always out of terrible things there can be great change and great improvement. Like you said at the very beginning, it's almost like, you know, the design world had to be broken before it could actually start to say, what are we here for? What's our purpose? What are we really meant to be doing?
Why isn't this as much fun anymore?
Yeah. our generation, I think we were so lucky. We were the last generation to be fully without tech. There was no social media, it was in our later years. But when we were young, everything was much more carefree. I look at my friends' kids in their 20s, and I look at my own son who's 15 and his friends, and they're not carefree because they get a deluge of information and imagery and things they have to make quite moral decisions on all the time, day in, day out, day in, day out.
From very young age.
From a very young age. Whereas, we didn't have that. But I think the time of carefree is over, because I've gone through periods where I've longed to go back. I would almost do anything to go back to about 1985. But of course we can't. And so it's about, how do we contribute to something better? And it probably won't be carefree, but if it could be much more caring, like you said at the very beginning, that's got to be the only direction that we can go in. Otherwise, I think, to be honest,
that's deeper. And I think the other thing that needs to change in our industry particularly is, and some of this comes down to us not earning enough, but keeping older generations in to a certain extent, as well as the new. We're not bringing new in. We're kicking the older out. And I'm going to refer back to tribal times again, when we had obviously the young that was cared for, the children, in our tribal village. Then we had the teenagers, which were the rebellious, go out there, go anywhere, go, in a group, and they were, teenagers are very insular. They look after their little group of people, and they're quite aggressive. Look after.
That's why there's usually some kind of ritual to allow them to do all that away from the main tribe.
And then we have the 20-some, the late teens to 20-some. It's the young adults that should really they're the ones leading the hunt, and right at the beginning, and really sort of in there, and they're the adults, the workers, and then we had the elders that held back and organized and sorted things out, and really got, took all that wisdom, that learned wisdom, and obviously there wasn't that many left by then, and they were the ones who could take that learnt wisdom and apply it, and that thinking, and they could hold back and have thoughts and spend a bit of time in the head to get some solutions. I think, design has become in everything but, architecture treasures age. It's well known that architects do the best work.
Not even architecture anymore. Because I do huge amounts of work in the architecture world. Some of my biggest clients are architectural firms. And no, once you get to 50, even in architecture, unless you have managed to climb that rung into management and you've got some power, if you're still an architect, male or female, you're kind of seen as irrelevant. And yet what I'm seeing is it is so strange, because it's that generation and older who have actually built something. They have got that hands-on experience, and yet the architecture world has gone like all the other industries, and it's the cult of the youth. And you're right, there is that energy, that dynamism, that questioning which you need from young people,
wonderful.
To come in and say, why are you doing it that way? Have you thought about this? But without the wisdom and without the lived experience, something goes terribly wrong, and they are losing something so fundamentally important. Architects are leaving the industry in their droves, because the moment they get to a certain age, they're not valued. But the one hope that I see, a little bit linked to what you were saying, Philip, about some of these older skills that are now they're starting to make a comeback. Watching is starting to make a comeback. I bet you're seeing that as well.
I'm illustrating again all the time. Clients can see the heart in the work and the skill in the work, and they're actually paying for it. Where I think when we took it digital, and there is a real place for digital, particularly graphics is still, my graphics is still, I show the client digital work. I mean, I still draw.
And with architecture, being able to render something very quickly and to show a client this is what the space would look like.
But they love the craft. to see the craft behind it by the drawing. And
if you can sit and sketch in front of a client as they're talking,
it's such a skill.
Client finally gets that what they're paying for is not just a design. They're actually paying for someone who is thinking. They think if it's done on a screen, if I had the time, I could do that.
Yeah, I mean, how many designers?
All these true skills are starting to slowly make their way back in.
We won a pitch that we were probably the last ones that, you know, on the list that should have won it on paper.
Really?
Recently, and the whole thing was visualized. I visualized it myself. I did the actual drawings. I mean, a lot of help, a lot of people, but I did the actual drawings, and that didn't have one render in it. And they say, oh, we wanted renders, and everyone else had renders, but at the end of the day, we won it.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is a want to see some of it, and I think every presentation should have, if it can, should have some hand skills on there nowadays.
Yes. Well, don't you think it allows a client, like you know, you were just saying that you and your co-author, you're writing this book to educate companies in how to put together a brief and how to choose and hire a company. Just like you've been talking about, the most interesting part of work and the most effective in design is when you can get under the hood into the psychology of the customer, when the client can actually see that it is your thinking and you're interpreting their words and their thoughts are coming to life, because the designer has made themselves so far removed from their design work that it's made the client think, I do this, but I think that intimacy, that connection allows the client to understand the psychology, because they can actually see it in real time of what's being done, how that designer is interpreting.
I've always done it. I've always drawn in the meetings. It got a bit ridiculous where people didn't think I was listening because I was drawing too much, but to rein it back, I've always done it, and clients have always loved it. Always. Yeah.
I hope that it will make a real big comeback, because it will help the design world be seen that there is mastery. And it's AI and just the general degradation of the design world has made people think, yeah, I could do that. Of course you could. There is no way you could make that, you know, interpret that and make it meaningful. No, it's not going to happen. And that's where the design world has really got to have the courage to step forward and say, there is mastery in what we do. It's our thinking that you're paying for. It's not our design, it's our thinking.
Yeah. I think the other thing is meet people face to face. That's one of the things we're not doing enough, and design needs it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that meeting of minds can't happen so easily virtually. I think one-on-one it can, like as in we're one-on-one here, and this can, we're spending time.
A team of designers are trying to meet a team from the client.
It works better for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. That in-person collaboration.
Yeah,
that's key. So you've told me about your bends in the road.
There's hundreds, and
we can't do hundreds.
No, and one of your questions was also, is there anything you would change if you could go back? And both of these link incredibly, because there's stuff I regret. There's stuff, you know, I sit up at night. There's a lot of stuff I think, you know, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't got that drunk at that party and thought I could break dance. I mean, that I really do wish I did, you know, but and
oh no, you can never regret those things. Those things have to be done.
But, you know,
when you're an old man and there is no way in hell you'll ever be able to break dance, you will be glad you did that stuff.
I think, well, life's a journey, and I think all those bits have led to now. I'm someone who looks at positives. I think it's pretty obvious, and really sort of thrives on them. And I think all those moments of change, and when you feel derailed, all the things that you think I could go back and change, and there's so many. I don't think I would, really. And there's been parts that have caused me great distress and depression and all sorts of things. But the end of the day, you know.
I know. I've had some of the phone calls with you at the time
Yeah.
through the years.
Yeah.
Standing at stations.
Yes. Yeah. But
It'll be fine. It'll be okay.
But
I know you're going to get
they've
through
all
this.
led me to here, and I'm
Yes,
and I'm happier than I've ever been. Doing some great work. I'm thinking better than I've ever thought. I probably feel more relevant and connected to all different ages, being somewhere in the middle, and being able to, you know, I know still what's coming up and what's going on, and I feel in a great place to be able to look at it and work with it and judge positively. And hopefully, you know, design can enhance, and I'd like to enhance people's lives through it. So to change anything or to go through those moments of derailment, I think they're all part of this wonderful journey. They're going on a motorbike across the Sahara. That's to do with getting away from something, you know.
Yeah.
But it was wonderful, and it reset me and gave me resilience. So
what's your learning then? So you're not going to change anything, and what have you learned that you would pass on to someone coming into the industry, or, you know, just to someone if they're going through a tough time?
I think it's 3 words, really. I think curiosity, stay curious and open. Kindness, and probably change. That whatever's going on, it will change again, you know, like whether it's good or bad. And that gives you resilience, I think, that once you actually truly understand that. But a lighting designer once told me that the thing is with lighting is you can't see light without dark. And when it's really not very comfortable is when it's so bright. It's what it is we haven't got any shadows to see it against and appreciate this environment makes us feel comfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's life. That is life. We need the ups and downs. Life's a journey. And I think the greatest lesson is letting it be a journey and approaching it with kindness, openness, generosity, positivity. And I think knowing it's a journey like that allows it to be positive.
Well, on that really lovely note, I will say thank you very much, Philip Marshall, for such an interesting conversation. I think I might even ask you to come back again and tell some of those stories. Thank you so much for your time. I've loved talking to you, and have a brilliant week. And how can people reach out to you if they want to talk to you, work with you?
LinkedIn's by far the best. I'm really active on
your LinkedIn profile. Lovely. Okay, well, Philip Marshall and all your wonderfulness. Thank you very much.